Welcome to Behind the Code with Atomic Build. My name is Amit, and today I have with me Gal from Get Dial. I'm very excited to have you here today, Gal. Thanks for joining me. And if you don't mind, just give a little introduction about yourself.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amit. Thanks for hosting me. So excited to be here. So to be honest, once we had that opportunity to jump on this webinar, this podcast, sorry, I was very excited because I see what you're doing over there and the way that you're breaking down companies and the way that you're actually giving the ability for companies to show themselves. And you're asking very good questions. So I'm very excited from that podcast and the upcoming questions. Maybe a quick introduction about myself. I grew as a professional game player. I was like a gamer on CS 1.6. Flew through like the US and the Europe to competitions. And till I hit like 16, I realized that I have a lot of audience who wants to see me playing, and even not only to see me playing, but also to basically play with me. But I was only one, and there was like thousands. So what I did, I implemented a bot that pretend myself to be the bot. So I just productized myself. Then I released it as a paid plan, like a self-serve product, and it reached to 50,000 daily active users. So on that
Wow.
time, yeah, on that time, my mother told me that after the fourth air conditioner that I purchased to my room, she told me, "Listen, Gal, you can't live at a server room. You need to sell everything." And then I realized that I can't really do that, so I sold it to a gaming company, and then started to work on the gaming company till I was 18. Then I served in the army in the IDF on the intelligence corps about 8 years on the cybersecurity field, mostly on the big data infrastructure and real-time infrastructure. After that, I realized that I want to pursue my entrepreneurship career, but I had no enough experience. So I decided to join
Mhm.
a company who was a second timer. So at the time it was a theater O from Just. I joined Just as the first employee, first engineer, and I had about like 40 engineers and basically grew the R&D department from 0 to 40 people. And the company grew in an hyper growth, like from 1 to 10 to 1 to 10 in 2 years. So it was an hyper growth, and I, the I had the chance to be close to the founders and see how things are going and what are the challenges of growing so fast. And once we hit the 10 million ARR, I decided that I'm going to pursue my career and I have enough experiences. Then Nathan, me, and Omri, who's a childhood friend of mine,
Mhm.
started the new journey, which was January.
Wow. You had quite a colored journey so far. That's amazing. So you essentially built a server room in your room, your family home, and you, wow, that's incredible. And only after, I guess, scaling it to a certain point, you got booted out, like any true startup founder getting booted out of their first workspace.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So when you were building at Genway, what was really like, what did you learn in terms of the difference between what an agent can hold, like a conversation, and then actually operate in the real world?
So in January, we optimized a lot for the latency. It wasn't the early days on all of the speech-to-speech audio models. Back at the time,
Hmm.
there was no audio-to-audio, speech-to-speech model at all. So it was like combining parts like a puzzle and try to see where you can minimize the latency, because we wanted to make the conversation feel a human-like conversation. And there was like a lot of fatigue of humans try to interact with AI agents that time, and it wasn't so natural. So one of the things that was
Right.
an eye challenge for us, it was latency, but then also the quality of the conversation itself. How to make the AI agent, following the guidelines, how to not make the AI agent say things that doesn't need to say, how to make sure that the AI agent asks the right questions, not making the human confused. So there was a lot of challenges around like speed and quality.
Hmm. And was it like driven just from in-house testing, or a lot of customer feedback pointing to latency being a key issue?
So January AI was an AI moderation platform for user research product
Hmm.
teams. So by definition, the product itself worked with the customer of the product was UXRs, user experience researchers.
Right.
So they own the one-to-one interviews, the in-depth interviews. So they knew how to judge whether the interview is good or not. So basically, it was feedback from the end users, but also from our customers who are highly professionalized on how to conduct an effective interview.
That is a tough audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But also like really awesome for increasing product quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So for you, when did you realize that this was going to be a standalone infrastructure problem, not just a feature that you're going to add to an existing product?
So since we spent a lot of time, and the more we spent on the understanding how the infra is being changed and evolves, over time, it was like on 2023 when just the AI era started. We realized that the problem is much bigger than we thought. It's not only the latency and the speed, but also that we implemented for one specific use case. So for product feedback. But then we realized that it's not only the issue with that we solved. It wasn't only for that specific use case. So people keep interacting with agents on their phones, on their emails, on their WhatsApp, on their SMS. Then we realized that the issue which we try to solve is something bigger. Then we decided that if the issue is so big, why can't we implement it as a platform, as a standard platform?
Right.
Then we thought that Dial basically is the next generation product. That's why we pivoted to Dial. We understood that basically the communication between humans to agents must be on the existing infrastructure. So telephony and all of the telecommunication protocols are so old and so behind. And we thought that if we can make the communication protocols much efficient for agents, at one day we would be able to even implement our own communication protocol. And the next era of that is agents talking to agents, which we already see on Dial, that basically agents are going to communicate with other agents. And
Right.
the telecommunication protocols are so non-effective and so non-optimized for AI agents. So for instance, right now, a conversation of 10 minutes between two AI agents spends 20x more where it should it spends 20x more than it should be spending in terms of tokens, but also in terms of latency. So agents don't need an entire context like people need. They don't need
Right.
you to remind what you talked like 1 minute ago or like 5 minutes ago. They know how to, they have better memory than us, short-term memory, but also long-term memory. So the communication itself the protocol itself does not really support right now the relay protocol. So this is one of the things that we found that if we're going to implement, it's going to make that the communication much more effective.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you to step back for a moment and just because the audience, a lot of people listening are also non-technical, and if you're gonna explain Dial just in the simplest way of what your business does, can we start there? And then I have a second question for you around the communication limitations of a human-built system.
Yeah, perfect. So Dial is a phone carrier for AI agents, basically making AI agents accessible for all of the telecommunication protocols. So if you if you have a cloud code or any other things like OpenClaw, NanoClaw, and you want it to interact with the real world through phone calls, through SMS, through iMessage. Right now, an AI agent won't have its own phone number, sorry. What it will require you to do is to wire your personal number into the AI agent, then it will be able to operate on your behalf. Now, most of the times you don't want to do so. We want the AI agent to have its own phone call, its own inbox. So the only way to do so is go to one of the BSPs and start implementing and being a developer like Wix in order to make it happen. So what we made is made it accessible but also compliant. So Dial in one sentence is making telecommunication protocols accessible and compliant for AI agents.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's I think the compliance part is pretty important layer because the way communication moves today, it's an afterthought, I think, when people are building AI agents. So in your white paper you have on your website, you describe essentially like a wrong species problem. And what would you say, like the infrastructure today that we built for humans, what are one of the key ways it won't work well for AI agents?
So the thing with compliance in like few sentences is that it's updated so frequently. And in order to be complied with the regulations, you need to make it your own business day to day. So say you're going to call to a different like country other than the States. Now you need to comply not with only the destination, but also with the origin. So there is a combination. It depends from where you call to the destination you call and see what are the regulations over there. So for instance, not many people know, but in order to send SMS to like a different destinations, there are regulations not only on the message itself, but also on the hours that you can send SMS. So if you are not going to comply with it, you might be in a risk that your phone number is going to be blocked. And
Right.
the time you realize that it's blocked, it's too late. So you need to prevent it and you need to implement your own guardrails. That's what we are doing behind the scenes and making sure you are compliant with everything and you're not hurting your core product.
Right. So that seems like a pretty key, or at least one key reason to have an agent have its own phone number using its own protocols. What is another that it's a good way to have it instead of being inside the company's existing telecom infrastructure?
That's actually a good question. So I think one thing is to separate things. I mean, to make sure that everything is in its own. But if you want to support like use cases that are massive in terms of scale, and you want to send a lot of SMSs, and you want to make a lot of voice calls, so you might even need, to maintain a larger bucket of phone numbers, and you want your AI agents to control all of them on your behalf. I'm not sure if it answers.
Yeah. So like essentially, with Dial, an AI agent can have its own phone number to create actions in the world and not lean into the company's existing like telecom infrastructure. So one thing that comes to my mind, because I built products in the supply chain industry, and specifically in trucking and freight, and there's so much communication outbound from like a shipper or a freight broker going out. And to your point, um, like most protocols are broken after hours, no rules being followed, etc. So I think if you could communicate to a company why it's important to have an AI agent with its own number acting in the world, that's the core, like the root of my question, like how we would not basically cross over with existing systems and instead be its own independent actor, and why that would be impactful.
Yeah, so the thing with AI agents that I believe it today, every company implement its own dedicated solutions that are not part of the core product itself. Now, it's good for separation of data and also separation of concerns. So once you plug in your knowledge base, your entire company knowledge base into the AI agents, it gets mess. And you want to control the way that the AI agent is going to operate. So the same thing applies with phone numbers. You're going to virtually separate the data that is being accessible for your AI agent, thus you will be able to control what are the things that the agent could potentially risk. And the thing with the phone number for the AI agents, once it becomes so simple, so companies can, start implementing and POC things without making their entire core product going wrong. And we do believe that if you have a company, if you have like a team, a dedicated team that is the owner, like owning the telecommunication protocol inside the company, so we might not need Dial. You might need to go to the other BSPs, but you need to make sure that team, this is their bread and butter, right? You need to make sure that team is the owners, sorry, of the entire entire infra.
Right. Got it. Yeah. I think it's I think because you're in like a category, like you're creating a category and defining a new way people kind of approach this. One thing that I came to before I met you and just when I got introduced to your company as a whole is that, and including our engineering team, they came to this conclusion, like, is this a voice agent? Is this a telecom API company? Like, what is it? When people kind of approach and define your company before actually getting in and reading through what you do, what do you think defining it as a voice agent or a telecom API company, what does that fundamentally misunderstand about what Dial does?
So it's actually a good question. So the way we see Dial is that you don't have to handle not the bones itself and not also the metal itself. So you just want to give us the mission and you want us to accomplish that. Now, yes, there are teams that are working on a different mode, what we call the self-hosted mode. Basically, we are just giving the infra and the compliance, and they owning the actual conversation and what are the logic. Now, the way we think about it, and we are going to talk a lot about it in the next talks, the next questions, it will be battery included. So you just need to basically provide the mission itself and like a budget. Then we are going to do that on your behalf. Telecommunication APIs are accessible for agents for a long time. That's not the way that we make a huge make a huge success, but making AI agents works natively with telecommunication by providing them the error codes that are accessible for AI agents to know how to solve that issue by itself, but also to make sure that the AI agents, like building the awareness of the AI agents of when things get wrong, prevent the action itself and not making the ice ball keep rolling.
Got it. Okay, so in like your experience with deployments, can an agent perform really well in the application layer and then start to fail because carriers, reputation systems, or users start flagging it as spam?
Yeah, so that's also like we have models in set in our product that we know based on your initial use to predict whether your use case is going to be a huge failure or not. So we give you a lot of notifications, not you, but your agents. That's why you don't need to be in the loop. But we give a lot of notifications and through webhooks of what they need to change in line to be in line with the regulation. So if the call itself has a lower, like for instance, a response rate, or the agent talks much more than the other side, those are flags that we find makes the phone carriers flagging that specific phone number is going to be like a spam or something like that. So it's much more complicated than that, but the response rate and the ratio between the token and the talker, this is something that we find makes the AI agents in a loop that it can heal itself and the way that it is acting on.
Okay, right. So basically, like creating flags that show conversation patterns that are not. Well, it's interesting that you say that because conversations with humans are often like human to human. There are so many interruptions, and some people talk over others, and there's no flags, right? Like it's just that particular human operator continues in that way, perhaps indefinitely until they get coaching. But it sounds like what you've created essentially is a coaching layer inside to have agents learn from what is good and what is bad to keep moving forward. Is that how your customers interpret it? Like they can actually have these agents being self-coached, self-healing, and moving forward?
Correct. However, we do have as a human, flags. It's most on the nuance of the non-talked where we describe things. So it can be like a non-verbal cues that we can basically infer from the conversation. So if someone say like again, as I said before, you realize that you basically did not follow the previous context that he shared with you. And there are a lot of clues that you can take and take the advantage of and make sure that next time your prompt is going to be better. You're missing some MCPs. And if you start asking questions, so we had like one use case that a customer called to his customers and asked questions that was so obvious, like when was the last time that you used my product? The agent asked that. So the company itself has this data. And when you're asking that question to your customer, so basically if it feels not natural and feels not like personal, so what he had to do is to implement its own MCP and connect it to dial. Then basically it made the conversation much more healthier and filthy in terms of making the conversation tailor-made to that specific customer.
And to your point earlier, because agents have very sharp short-term, long-term, and context memory, that must have been a big change probably immediately, I imagine, for customer interactions in the company itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So humans, can connect up to 10 dots. Like the complexity is up to 10 dots. Agent can connect up to 1,000 dots. And sometimes, I'm asking my Cloud Code questions, and he immediately knows what I'm talking about and connects the
Right.
dots. That I'm so always some surprised of how intelligent it is. And we always like underestimate AI agents because we don't feed them with the right data. So the way that Dial is working is by giving seamlessly integration to your product with a really simple like MCP that you can implement for Dial, then the conversation, and we see it a lot of on the cold outreach. We see in the cold outreach use case on Dial about like 20 to 30 higher percentage of conversions. That's only because it's so obvious to connect your Apollo or your MCP or your actual product or even Play to Dial. It's like 5 minutes from the time that you want to do that until it's in production. And then the conversations is being better in terms of the feedback loop because it knows from conversation to conversation how to implement itself with the flags that we are giving them on real time.
So what do you think stops? So I've noticed, of course, being the recipient of everyone is the recipient of inbound calls, cold calls, right? Now, some companies elect to not give agent systems context. They're just literally cold calling with no context in a general format. What do you think prevents a company from connecting their Apollo or Clay to enrich the agent performance, and a company that does it naturally?
So it's about complexity. Most of the time when you want to connect dots, you need a tech guy, you need like an engineer. With
Right.
Dial, we don't need an engineer. You just need a Cloud Code subscription, and you can connect our NCP, our documentation NCP, which is Doc First NCP. We call it like that. To your Cloud Code and just describe what you want to do, and your Cloud Code is going to figure it out what it needs to do in your Dials environment.
I think that is a very powerful setup note.
Yeah.
That's what people, because like anyone who's building in the space that is not a software engineer, you can do this now on your own as a strong ICP inside a company that's been tasked with an outcome like this. And speaking of that, you've discussed like how using AI agents across product engineering, design, QA is pretty important. I think many engineering leaders like yourself have been saying this now for the past year or so. But inside Dial, what is being built by agents, if anything at all?
So it's more than if anything at all. It's 99% of the code built by agents.
Okay.
So the way that we are implementing, it's not the old, the old path to implement products. When you describe the documentation, but what we are doing, we are spending a lot of time on the description of what we want the agent to achieve, not the user. It's not even anymore user story; it's agent story. That's the way we call it. So we describe what is the agent, what is its identity, describe it. I mean, there are different identities of agents. There are Codex and Cloud Code. We're optimizing for both of them. Now, the way we describe it is the way the agent wants to act, meaning that it's not only what is what is the definition of done, but also how many tokens we want the agent to spend on that specific action. Then that requirement basically feeds into our engineer agents that basically engineer agents then in parallel to their QA agent, and at the end there is the requirement that is built and optimized specifically for that AI agent, and then is being tested by our Cloud Code and also Codex agents to see whether they accomplish the task or not. And if not, it revert back to the engineer, the architect, and come back until the Codex agent, our Codex agents and Cloud Code agents approve that it works for them in the way that the human, meaning our team, described.
I think you just gave every product manager on earth a very hot tip to start writing agent stories instead of user stories, as well as the breakdown of what that should look like. It's interesting because like naturally, I think teams have conformed to trying to write for agents when they're heavily used inside a team. But I think for other teams, this is still very foreign. It's just like a hack together a hybrid of like some teams are using it, some teams are not. What do you think like an engineering team that is just kind of introducing the idea of having coding agents involved in their environment versus a team that is very strong and using it? What would the strong team refuse to do that the junior team is probably doing often now?
So I believe that the Gen Z has no barriers, and I would say that juniors right now has a huge advantage
Mm,
to be on the market and to go viral with products with POCs and go beyond. I mean, go till the 100K ARR. Once the most stronger teams that I see right now are thinking about the 1% that it does not work and can
mhm,
go fail and are optimizing for that thing. Now it's a thing between velocity and quality. I believe that there is a balance between them. So we also had that conversation in our team when we have one senior engineer who is like 15 years old, 15 years experience, as experience of 15 years, and the other one is 3 years experienced. And this friction between them create a lot of like knowledge of how one is optimizing for velocity, the other one is optimizing for quality, and they found a balance.
right.
So one specific example, we have the community that we are maintaining of Dial, builders that want to build on Dial, and everything over there is like automated. We have no community manager, and we have about like hundreds of community members, and a lot of feature requests, a lot of bugs that is being applied. Hopefully, it will reduce the amount of bugs. But we found ourselves that we can't manage the community efficiently. So we implemented a community manager agent that basically goes over the request, connect the dots, see whether it's a bug or not, is going to open a ticket on Notion. And then the engineers wanted to have more control on things that are like on our core product or things that are, or for instance, on the CLI level. So
Mm,
we managed to basically productize two different agents, two different tasks definition. One we call autoship, meaning that the AI agent is going to close the loop itself until merging to production. And the other one is manual ship, where the AI is going to implement everything, launch a feature branch, send to the developers for their check with all of the automated checks that we ran before.
mhm,
And only the engineer is going to be the one who's going to push it to production. So
right.
that gave a lot of control once, but also maintaining the decision whether it's a specific, whether it's like auto ship or manual ship with the engineer itself.
And are you tracking which group naturally gravitates to manual versus auto ship? Because you mentioned like a junior's all about velocity, someone more experienced is all about like is there a natural gravitation? Like I'm gonna go into auto versus manual mode.
So frankly, our senior engineers are using much more like auto ship versus the juniors
Right.
who are using the manual ship. We thought it
Oh, nice. Nice.
we thought it would be the opposite, but we
Yeah.
found that the senior engineers, because they built the auto ship and the manual ship infrastructure behind the scene, they feel much more confident with auto ship things.
Okay, got it. Because they built the system, the confidence grow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for you, like now that agents can produce code, test systems, work continuously, how does your role change as like the leader of the company on the technical and business side? How does your role change?
So I think it's not even my role. I think it's everyone's roles. We find our engineers that they are less focused on building specific requests rather than building infrastructure and processes, automated processes for our product. So instead of spending 2 days on a specific feature, we are thinking ourselves, how we can spend like 3 days on building a process that next time that we are going to have the same feature on the same area and spend like 1 hour spending on the specific feature. But more than that, I feel that each one of the employees right now are focused more than 50% on the go-to market. Because we sell to builders,
Uh-huh.
we highly known and highly interaction. We have high interaction with our customers. We know the customers because we are the customers of ourselves. We are using Dial to cold outreach to potential prospects. For
Hmm.
the employees is also a go-to-market engineer and thinking about how can we implement a better approach. So one of the things that we implemented, we are not using anymore Clay, Lemlist, and all of the instantly products because those cold outreach has a so low, reply rate between 1 to 3%, and we built our own that basically goes to the all of the products and the vendors that we know where our prospect would be. For instance, GitHub, Hugging Face, Discord, and we basically knows I mean we take that context and we feed it into our go-to-market product that we built, and we know how to surface the opportunities to the specific prospect, not to make sure that he's not thinking of how can I integrate dial into my stack, but we are giving him exactly how we think he should integrate dial into the stack, and also the instruction itself that takes like 30 seconds to test.
Wow. So like this basically, like, this is one of the, I think, themes that a lot of businesses talk about, is that how would you unlock teams from tasks? Like, where would their time otherwise go? So in this case, every staff member essentially becomes a go-to-market engineer, and taking that, you built your own system to target your prospects and increase conversion rate, which is really phenomenal. And was that one of your team members that came to that conclusion that they should pursue this, or was that you?
So I think once you release time for your team, when you have brilliant team and you hire talent team, uh,
Hmm.
they know what to do with the next time. So I think our engineers and the staff members always want to be connected and much more close to the customers. So
Hmm.
the natural thing was start sending them, start hunting them, start know where they are, start being a part of more communities and see the feedback yourself. You don't need me to forward the feedback. You can just talk to
Right.
them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. So one thing I saw in the white paper again is this, the ratio, like 100 agents to one human, which is just you hear about it like often, but it's sometimes hard to hold that concept in your mind. A question I had for you is that, do you think we're building a world where agents will behave like humans, or are we building a world where networks will eventually recognize agents are fundamentally different participant? And how do you approach that as you're building out a dial?
So I believe that the new world is going to be operators and workers. The
Mhm.
humans are going to be the operators and the workers are going to be the humans.
Okay.
Now, today, the operator and the worker is the same one, is the human.
Right.
I believe that the differentiation is going to be clear. It's going to be so clear. But also, I believe that humans are going to know I mean, managing a lot of people, this is like a muscle that not a lot of people know how to do. And managing agents who are so brutal in terms of, going and always positive to do so and not challenging you about things, that's create a lot of challenge. Um, so I think people are going to be much more educated on how to manage people, but also then need to shift on how to manage agents. And in terms of how we are approaching that on billing dial, we starting with the trust layer to give the humans the control of what they want to do without thinking on the complexity, the tech
Hmm.
complexity of what happened behind the scenes, while not while showing them and being transparent with all of the what happened behind the scenes. So in terms of the voice call, we are storing and recording all of the voice calls to make them able to hear and see what happened over there. In the SMS, if there was any replay SMS, meaning that it was declined and then it resent automatically, we're going to show them that. We're
Right.
giving them all of the tools to feel confident, but also not to thinking on how things should be implemented in place.
Got it. So you touched on like the idea in today, or in the very near future, it'll be like a operator worker. Like the economy will be ruled by this kind of system. And today, that is a new skill people are picking up, right? Like, how do you actually deploy these workers in large numbers and orchestrate and manage them? What do you think in, I don't know why we use 5 years as the de facto amount projecting the future, but let's just use it. 5 years from now, what will feel less strange that feels rather uncomfortable today?
Talking to an AI agent right now, it still feels not natural. It still feels that you're talking to a robot.
Hmm.
I believe that in 5 years from now, people will want to speak to AI agents, not to humans, in terms of work-related tasks, while
Right.
maintaining the friendliness. I mean, I believe that right now, even right now, IRLs in real life events are getting a lot of traction, and people wants the connection between people with other people to be pursued. So I believe that all of the tech, so the work task related will be much more natural, and it's going to be more and more on voice rather than on communications channels like Slack and WhatsApp and things like that.
So you just mean like just speaking naturally into like a whatever recipient, phone,
Correct.
computer, microphone. Okay,
I mean,
got it.
even more than that, think about it like orchestrating a fleet of agents right now requires you to be the orchestrator, meaning that one agent going to you asking a question, you're going to ask your other agent. Think about it like a voice call with 15 agents that knows how to communicate together where you're on the line, just making sure that if someone asks you something, you have the right answer to get. But then we believe that most of the communication, the tactic communication, is going to be agent to agent, and you're going
Hmm.
to be the one only on the strategic questions that has no enough context. You would just need to you would just need to add integrations and add more relevant context to make the workers work efficiently.
And much like in a fully human organization, the workers collect context through operations that a strategy leader would sometimes miss. In that like future you're describing, I envision a world where the agent workers will collect context that I don't have. So I think that'll be a very interesting exchange that will start to occur.
Yeah, yeah. I would say that there is a risk, because it can be like a rolling mistake that if the agent got the wrong context and is going to act on that, and you're not even aware what was the context that he received during the steps,
Hmm.
won't be able to judge whether it's good or not. So I think
Right.
in context, I mean, harnessing your AI agent to work on the real data versus like an imaginate data. This is
Hmm.
something that would need higher attention from your side. This is why I think the operator should be the only one who's going to add additional knowledge bases into the AI agents.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just fair. It's for me. It's fascinating, and to see a point in the world will come where the operator's context will be accelerated by the workers in this like strange, rapid symbiotic relationship that we sort of see today, but we don't fully see it because, like you said, memory, like human beings' memory,
Mhm.
it's often changes as time from the event goes forward. Right? Like if we're on this call today, tomorrow my recall will be reduced from like right after we hang up the call, and it'll just continue to reduce as we go forward. So I'm excited for that world. And like you, like having seen Claude and ChatGPT's memory, like it persists in such a more elegant way than it did last year, and it's made my work much better. I think your lens and your vision for the future from a communication standpoint is fantastic. So you paid me a compliment earlier in the conversation. That's my compliment to you, and I think what you're building is really cool. And just shifting as we close out our conversation, which business leader inspires you the most, and what about what they operate you kind of bring into your own day to day?
So I would say that I won't go to the big names. I will go to
Okay.
someone who is like up to date and is still on the bush. So I would say that Jake Cooper, the CEO of Railway, I think he's doing
Okay.
a great job. I think he's making the all of the IaaS infrastructure as a service much more accessible for developers, and you can see that by their numbers. They also have like a brilliant page, a website that show their stats, how many users, how many
Okay.
users are there. This is my inspiration. I'm always showing my team, listen, this is how things going to look like. I mean, once you hit a point, it's going to be like it's going to blow. Now, I think the same thing he did for AI, for cloud infrastructure, we want to do for the telecommunication protocols. We want to make it accessible for everyone, and we want people not to think about the complexity and the compliance.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I think the railway example is phenomenal, and it's often cited as inspiration by many engineers who use the product day to day. And so when you're not building Dial and just like having a very busy life, what helps you quiet your mind?
I would say vacations, but I have now for the last 3 years vacation.
Hmm.
Um, no, so my wife and my daughter, spending time with them, this is like priceless.
Right.
We just talked about it, but yeah, I have a newborn like 1 week ago with the newborn, and doing the birth itself. I had a phone call from one of our investors, so I had to go outside and told my wife, listen, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss the birth itself. Don't be mad on me so much, I have nothing to do with that.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, time with my daughter, this is the prices. It's like a small machine learning model, like small LLM that is being learning every day, and
Hmm.
the process of thinking, and the process of like getting approved. For me, the RLHF, it's the RLHF, sorry, the reinforcement learning. This is something for me that feels, the joystick itself. We're not a company who's making foundation models. But with my
Right.
daughter, I feel that I have my own foundation model, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
feedback loop is so crazy. One day you are saying something, the other day you see how she reacts with your feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. And they pick up that so quickly. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm so happy to hear that you get those moments with your newborn and your other daughter and your wife. That's amazing. I do hope you get that vacation soon, even if it's a mini vacation. So for you, just final question: what does success ultimately look like?
That we are going to have 100% coverage. That each one of the AI agents out there are going to have its own phone number and ability to
Hmm.
interact with the real world.
Amazing. Yeah, that's very concrete. I think you can put that publicly, internally and externally. So that's awesome. Gal, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I know your schedule's super busy, so I really appreciate you joining me today.